how does our transformation take place from being materialistic to spiritual? It starts with satsang, the company of the good. So company of the good, like we said, it can be company of the good people, company of good emotions like bhajans and stuff. And then later company of good thoughts within us. So through that comes detachment from the lower. Some satsang comes nissang, is detachment from the lower. And then you become free from delusion. So we are suffering from all kinds of delusions. Happiness lies in the world, that money is the savior of, all kinds of delusion. And then you become steadfast in the pursuit of truth because you're free from attachments and desires for worldly things. And then that leads to Jivan Mukti, which is a very powerful assertion that you can reach enlightenment while living.
Namaste and welcome to today's episode of our show on the Bhagavad Gita with Srimati Jaya Row, renowned teacher of Vedanta and also my mother. I'm your host, Ajay. Jayaji, today one of the things that we're going to talk about is this concept of Satsang, right? And I think they've gotten fairly popular, Satsang, and what we think as Satsang is usually a session where we're singing bhajans and kirtans, and which is beautiful, by the way. I think community singing is a great, very uplifting experience. But does that encompass everything that satsang means? So what exactly does satsang mean?
Satsang now has come to mean that you go to a swami or a guru or a sannyasi and hang around there, or be in that ashram, or be in the Himalayas, or sing bhajans, kirtans. Now this is external stimulation. This has a limited purpose because you can be in the midst of bhajans and kirtans and still think negatively. You can be in an ashram and be completely negative. So the purpose, essentially, satsang is cultivation of positivity. Now the mind tends to be negative. It has this gravitational pull towards the lower. So you need to pull the mind out of that and give it an environment which is conducive for positivity, so that the mind then becomes independently positive. This is a very, very important aspect of spiritual development. So there is a story in our scriptures which talks about Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. So they have an argument. Vishwamitra says tapasya or hard work is more important than satsang. And Vasishtha says the other way. He says satsang is more important. So they go to Sheshnag, who's supposed to bear the weight of the earth on his head. So Sheshnag says, you give me a thing by which the weight of the earth is lifted from my head. And so Vishwamitra says, I will pledge 1,000 years of tapas. But the earth doesn't budge. Vasishtha says, I will give you 12 minutes of satsang. And the earth immediately lifts. So that is a story that highlights the value of satsang. So first, of course, you have to start with external stimulation because that's what matters. So it's not just half an hour of bhajan or kirtan. It is the atmosphere at home or at the workplace. What is the environment like? Is it positive? Is it chilled out? Is it stressed out? Is there conflict? All that has a bearing on the mind of people. And then if you give it a practice, like first earlier in our society, in our culture, first thing in the morning there was spiritual input by study of the Gita or Upanishads or something like that. Then there was yoga, Surya Namaskar, stuff like that. And then at the end of the day, there was half an hour of bhajan singing. And that helped to remove the little emotional negativity that you pick up during the day. And it's like a mental bathing. You get refreshed, and then you sleep well. This is the last practice just before dinner. But this has all gone now. But it can be introduced, like when you're in the car, you can listen to uplifting music. You can make sure that you have this spiritual intake of the Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads or whatever it is. And then you'll find that during the day, there is a tendency to be more positive. So even if somebody speaks negatively, you kind of balance it out and bring it back to the positive. So there has to be an effort in that. All this put together is satsang.
It's like a kind of earthing in a way.
Yes. And then this is a very important base or foundation for you to build your spiritual edifice.
So satsang one is from an environment point of view, right? At a physical level. But also when we talk about at an emotional level or at an intellectual level, satsang is important at every one of those levels, right?
Absolutely.
So even, for example, what we expose ourselves to, if we're watching Netflix, what is it that we're watching on Netflix? Or streaming, or what kind of people or organizations do we follow on social media? Because this is, if you think about it, we are spending fair few hours every single day, and we follow and curate our feeds and all of that. But I don't think we spend enough time thinking about, oh, what is the impact that this is having on me, right? Because like the first thing we used to do earlier on, I don't know how many people do that now, but the first thing you would do is pick up the newspaper, and there's all kinds of, you're just assaulted with negative news, right? That's just nature of news is like that. So in such a environment, so yes, one is the environment, right? How do we build this sense of satsang given the world that we live in today?
See, even on social media, I think, depending on what you watch, they give you more of that.
Yep.
So if you watch more positive things, the feed that comes to you is more positive. And this is true in life also. So if you have a positive outlook in life, you naturally attract more positive people.
The algorithm.
Yes. It's nature's algorithm.
Yeah.
And also you make a concerted effort to keep away from negative. So you don't have to go and watch a murder mystery, for instance, or either at home on Netflix or outside.
Yeah.
You don't have to associate with negative people. And if you make a little bit of effort there, then you find that you attract positive people towards you. So after that, the effort is not required. The effort is in just maintaining positivity. So you naturally create an environment of satsang within you. And this is wonderfully put, because apparently someone said of Sri Ramakrishna that in Kali Yuga, you've created a Satya Yuga. So he did it in a very powerful way. But those of us who are not yet enlightened or realized, we can do it in our own little way. So you have oases of positivity in an environment of negativity. And that's how you kind of change the world.
Yeah. And even when you look back at our mythology, right? The environment that Lord Krishna was born into, he was literally born in a jail, or the environment that Prahlad was in during his childhood, right? And I think so. Those are kind of what do you say, exaggerated a bit, right? For the impact. But even in our lives, sometimes we find ourselves in an office environment which is toxic, and it's not like we are necessarily toxic, but sometimes it becomes like that. And those are the moments where if we are not spiritually reinforced mentally and intellectually, then it can really bring you down.
Yes.
Right. So, or even in the home environment, if there's a lot of conflict, and it happens, right? It's part of life with many people. So the environment is not the controllable here. What is controllable is our thoughts, what we read, what we expose our senses to.
Yeah, but your mind then influences the environment.
Right.
You see, like even let's say in an office environment or at home, even
Yeah.
one person is toxic, let's say. The rest can get together and create a positive environment in which the person either has to change and become positive, a little bit more positive, or has to leave the situation or leave the office, for instance, because there is a mismatch. So that you can do. Create an environment of positivity where it is not possible for a negative or toxic person to survive. And they go wherever they
But
want.
my point is, see, like in many instances, we are not in charge. We cannot control the environment beyond a point, right?
Yes, but
So then the question is, do I continue to stay in this environment, or should I change the environment that I'm in to a more conducive, like my workplace, right? I may say, okay, if I join another organization, it could be better, for me, which is not a bad thing, right? I mean, I'm
no,
just
it's
asking.
not.
I'm genuinely like,
See, it depends on how powerfully positive you are. If you are positive but you're not powerful enough, then you can't withstand the toxicity of the environment. So you need to change. So you change your job, whatever, you change your externals.
yeah,
But if you are that powerful, then you don't need to change anything. Just your positivity changes the environment. Like Prahlada,
yeah,
after his father's death, he became the king of the Daityas, of the demons. And all the demons became positive. That's the story.
yeah,
And this is what you actually experience. Because even if there's a person at a junior level who's positive, he has an influence on the rest of the environment. So it's not about superiority. And of course, if the leader is positive, then everything changes.
yeah,
But I'm taking the worst case scenario where you have no influence on the environment. But still, if you're powerfully positive in your thinking, you bring about a change. There's a Hindi movie which came out many years ago called Bawarchi
okay,
with Rajesh Khanna. And Rajesh Khanna enters this family, it's a joint family, as a cook.
okay,
And it's like a servant. But how he changes everything around. Because it's a joint family, there's conflict, there are fights
Bickering.
going on, there's bickering. And he brought about harmony in that. Now, this is a movie, but still it highlights the power that we have, the power of positivity.
Yep.
So you don't need to be in a position of influence to bring about a change.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah. There's this, when we talk about satsang, and I was, we were discussing this earlier at breakfast today, and you mentioned there's this beautiful verse from the Bhaj Govindam that talks about satsang. So, shall we listen to it?
Yes,
and
sure.
then we can get into what it means. So it says, through the company of the wise, satsang, comes freedom from unhealthy attachments. Freedom from unhealthy attachments leads to freedom from delusion. Freedom from delusion leads to steadfastness in the truth. And abidance in the truth culminates in liberation while living, Jivan Mukti.
Yes. So Shankaracharya in the Bhaj Govindam gives 31 verses from a very simple viewpoint that every ordinary person can relate to.
Yeah.
So in this verse, he's talking about the power of satsang. How does our transformation take place from being materialistic to spiritual? It starts with satsang, the company of the good. So company of the good, like we said, it can be company of the good people, company of good emotions, like bhajans and stuff. And then later company of good thoughts within us. So through that, comes detachment from the lower. Satsang, from satsang comes nissang, is detachment from the lower. And then you become free from delusion. So we are suffering from all kinds of delusions, that happiness lies in the world, that money is the savior of, all kinds of delusion. And then you become steadfast in the pursuit of truth because you're free from attachments and desires for worldly things. And then that leads to Jivan Mukti, which is a very powerful assertion that you can reach enlightenment while living. So Vedanta doesn't promise a post-mortem happiness. It says here and now you can get it. And it all starts with satsang. So even in this verse, he's giving the importance of satsang. And you actually experience it in your life. Because once you're exposed to it, then you start courting it. You want more of it. And that's how you get detached from the lower. In anyone's spiritual journey, you find it starts with that, the exposure to the good.
Yeah, and I think this concept of satsang is especially so important for our children, the next generation, and like we've said in the past, this podcast is about creating access to the Bhagavad Gita in a more contemporary context. That's all that we're trying to do. I don't think we're over here trying to share anything revolutionary or something that's never said before. I don't think any of that is true. But just setting it in a modern context, and the purpose is to share these positive ideas and thoughts with the younger generation, right? And for everyone, but specifically now for the younger generation, because I mean, they have their whole lives ahead of them, and they need it the most. And the earlier you get to this, the easier the rest of your life becomes, right?
True. But you see, the value of the podcast is to get people to accept or at least accommodate the thought that I can live the principles that are enunciated in the Gita. Otherwise, it seems so far off.
Yeah.
It seems like a distant dream that I can't relate to. So I live my life, But here, what we're trying to do is to get people to understand that no, I can connect with it, I can relate to it, and I can live it. Like satsang, how can I implement this in my life? And if that exposure is there, then you make an effort.
Yep. And so coming back to satsang, and it's important that we create this sense of satsang for the children, for the youth. So it's important to expose them to these ideas and principles when they're younger, because then it stays with you for the rest of your life. Somewhere those ideas get rooted.
Yes, this is very important, especially in modern times because everyone is so busy.
Yeah.
Kids are busier than the adults.
Yeah.
And yet, this happens because of the priorities of the parents. So the parents want the kids to get marks, to do this, that, and the other. And if you talk to them about, let's say, a weekly class for kids, which we want to start,
Yeah.
they say, oh, my kid doesn't have the time. It's not about time.
It's about priorities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it starts with the adults' priority.
Exactly.
And then you expose the kids to it, they'll take it.
Yep.
They immediately take to it. Whatever exposure we have had with kids, we've never had a problem with them.
Exactly.
Because they are open, they're like a clean slate. They don't have preconceived notions that adults have.
Yeah.
So they're open and they pick it up. And they immediately relate to it. They go home and put it into practice and come back the next day and say, yes, it works.
And great questions also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to resume our study of the Gita. We've finished the first 3 chapters now, and with today we're going to start on chapter 4. So would you be able to take us through, where we have started and how we have come here and what we're looking at in chapter 4?
So the Gita starts against the backdrop of Arjuna's sorrow. So the battle is about to begin, the Mahabharata war, And he asks Krishna to drive him between the two armies so he may have a view of what the other army is about. And he makes a statement that I want to see those who have assembled here to please Duryodhana. So Krishna knows that he is being judgmental. So he wants to tell him that everyone is not here to please Duryodhana. There are people, outstanding people, who are there just to do their job. So you also do your job, don't pass judgment. So he takes the chariot bang in front of Bhishma and Dronacharya, two outstanding characters of the Mahabharata. And Arjuna sees them and crumbles, just breaks down. So this is the backdrop of the Gita. And there is his sorrow. Why? Because we are also all in sorrow. Everyone is grieving about something or the other. The second chapter begins with Krishna telling him, making a dramatic statement that the wise don't grieve either for the living or for the dead, that there's no place for grief in life. And then he takes him through the highest knowledge. Second chapter is referred to as Sankhya Yoga, yoga of knowledge. Why does he start with the highest knowledge? Because Arjuna is in no condition to take in that knowledge. For two reasons. One is like a shock treatment, that he is in grief, and then when you say something that is dramatic, the tears dry up and then you're listening. The second is that Arjuna has always treated Krishna as a friend. They were very dear friends. But he doesn't understand that Krishna is an enlightened soul, that he has the answers to all his problems. So he wants to kind of reassure him that here are the answers. So anyway, he gives the highest knowledge. And then in verse 54, Arjuna wakes up. And you know he's woken up because he asks a question. But that question is not relevant to his condition. He just asks, who is a man of perfection? And those last 19 verses of chapter 2 are brilliant. And it's called the Sthita Prajna portion. So it is given special importance because it's so practical, and it encompasses the entire spiritual path in those 19 verses. Then in the third chapter, Arjuna is fully awake. So he comes down to his level. He asks Krishna the question, you speak the highest knowledge. You say knowledge is superior to action. And yet you're recommending this ghora karma, this terrible action of killing my own people. So tell me one definite path to follow and I'll do that. Then starts this wonderful karma yoga, this very, very practical thesis on action. And it talks about external action and what the attitude of what our attitude should be towards action. And it takes us through selfish, unselfish, selfless, so on and so forth. Now in the fourth chapter, he goes back to the original law, which is as you think, so you become. So if we want to get to the state of enlightenment, we have to think of Atman all the time. How is that possible? We have responsibilities, we have duties, we have our own ambitions, so on and so forth. So he gives a brilliant 12 yajnas in which he says, whatever you do, do it, but think of Atman. And it's an outstanding piece where it's practical. It tells you you can do whatever it is that you want in life, but just think of the higher while you're doing it. And so there is no escape from the thought of God. Later he gets down to even breathing. Every breath can be a reminder of God. Every sound you hear can be a reminder of God. Everything you taste, whatever it is. And so it leads up to that. But the 12 yajnas is the most valuable part of chapter 4. So in other words, he makes it subtle. The karma yoga is made subtle. It's not about external action. It's about what you're thinking, what's going on in your mind while you're performing the action. And then you are ready you've turned inward, you're ready. So chapter 5 is about renunciation. Okay. So this is the chronology.
Okay. So, shall we begin our study of chapter 4 with the
Sure.
invocation?
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
I was thinking we'll take verses 1 and 2 together. Is that
Yes.
okay? So, we
Yeah.
listen to the chanting now.
श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवानहमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनुरीक्ष्वाकवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्टः परन्तप.
So, in verse 1, Lord Krishna says, the blessed Lord said, I told this imperishable yoga to Vivaswan. Vivaswan instructed Manu. Manu imparted it to Ikshvaku. In verse 2, he continues, thus obtained through tradition, the royal sages knew this. But in long course of time, this yoga has perished here, O Parantapa, scorcher of enemies. So that's verses 1 and 2 together.
So in this chapter, in these two verses, he is talking about the guru-shishya parampara. So he says, first of all, when he says, I taught it to Vivaswan. So when he says, I taught it, he doesn't mean the personality of Krishna, because Vivaswan was long before Krishna's time. He means whoever reached the state of realization, became Atman, taught to Vivaswan. Vivaswan taught it to Manu. Manu is supposed to be the first progenitor of humanity.
Okay.
And Manu taught it to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is the founder of the solar dynasty to which Ram belongs.
Okay.
So he's establishing the guru-shishya parampara, which started then and it is continuing till this day. So it's a nice occasion for us to start because Guru Purnima has just passed. So this guru-shishya parampara and the value that we place on it has imparted to us the respect for teachers of any kind. And it also establishes the lineage. So then he says something that is so relevant. He said it 5,000 years ago. It's so practical even now. He says, but by long lapse of time, it has perished. Mm-hmm. So it is not, unfortunately, something that we live in modern everyday context. But in those days, they lived it. And then he talks about Raja Rishis, the royal sages. This is a concept that is unique to India, where, see, in other cultures, you have the ascetics who leave the world, as it were, and go into seclusion. And they are the spiritual people. Yeah. And then you have the materialists. This is a wonderful combination of the two, where they were rajas, they were kings, they were men and women of influence and wealth, the likes of which we can't even imagine now. Yet, internally, they were sages. So, it brings out the concept that you can be in the world, you can live a materialistic life, a life where you have the best that the world has to offer, and yet be internally, spiritually evolved. So, he's laying the foundation for the rest of the 4th chapter. And then Arjuna, it also brings out the concept that when you speak, or when anyone is communicating anything, what really goes across is Atman, the spirit behind it. The rest is all junk. So, for instance, Ramana Maharshi did not speak. He did not teach, but he communicated. And he attracted people from all over the world. So what was that communication? The spirit. Then there are people who sang. Like Tyagaraja composed wonderful composition. There are so many people. It is not the music. It's the spirit that is conveyed through whatever it is. Then there were outstanding orators like Swami Ramatirtha or Vivekananda. Again, it is not the words, it's the spirit. So, not only in spiritual education, in anything that we do, even if it is sport, I mean, it's a physical thing. But what goes across is the spirit, you know. So you find maybe Messi playing football or Nadal playing tennis, or everyone who's outstanding in their field really communicates the spirit behind the action. And we must also go back to that. Cultivate the spirit, cultivate that devotion for whatever it is that we're doing, so that what communicates is the spirit. Even when you cook, when a person, like two people are cooking the same dish maybe, one person, whatever she cooks is excellent, even if it's a simple meal. The other person puts in a lot of work, but it somehow falls flat. Why? Because the spirit is missing. And in today's world, where we are so obsessed with external things, you know, the words we use and the tone and this, that, and the other, we must just go back to the spirit. And then you create your own
Aura.
Yes. You create your own aura. And it is that which communicates. It's the subtle thing.
Yeah, and I think like there's an important point where he talks about in the course of time this yoga has perished. I mean, it's a strong statement, but it's a reminder for us to get back to what we have forgotten also, right?
Yes.
Yes, there are things as we evolve as a culture. There are things that you need to drop along the way, right? But the fundamental values and principles don't change.
Yes.
The things around them may, the
Yeah.
rituals and practices may, but the fundamentals never change, right?
So, you know, in our culture, they have accepted that there are two different things in communicating spiritual values. There is the Sanatana Dharma, which is eternal principles of life and living, which never change.
Yeah.
It's like the law of gravity doesn't change. Then there is Yuga Dharma, which is according to the environment, according to what is happening around you, you may need to tweak the principle that you are living.
Yeah.
And that is very important. Or drop it completely and move on. Then the eternal values are preserved and you keep changing with the time. So you are relevant at any stage at any period of time.
Yeah, I
But
think
that, the moment about 1,000 years ago, it became calcified. People lost the Sanatana, the eternal values, and hung on to just the externals.
Yep.
And this is the beginning of the downfall.
Of any culture.
Any culture.
Any culture, I think. Yeah.
Also, there is a cyclical pattern, you know. Like people put in effort and reach the top. And then things become easy. So they get complacent. Then there is a deterioration.
Yeah.
Until it reaches a rock bottom and then again you come back.
So, moving on to verse 3, we'll listen to the chanting.
स एवायं मया तेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्.
So in verse 3, Lord Krishna continues. He says, "Today I tell you that same supremely profound ancient yoga because you are my devotee and friend."
Yeah. You know, this is a very interesting concept where he says, you are my devotee and friend. And it's a perfect recipe for a student. So in the guru-shishya relationship, there should be an element of familiarity, which is the friend. He says, "You're my friend."
Yeah.
And actually, in the Mahabharata, they describe Arjuna lying down on Krishna's lap. It was their familiarity was to that extent. They were very dear friends, close friends. And that closeness is necessary because then it facilitates the communication of values. And devotee. A devotee is one who surrenders. So you need both these. And then he says, he gives him the confidence because it is said that there are 4 ways of gaining knowledge. One is pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means you see it for yourself. For instance, you go to a lab and see copper sulfate crystals form. Then you know.
Yeah.
This can't be done with Vedanta. Then there is upama, comparison. So in the scriptures, there's a very strong comparison with the dream and waking state to make us understand what happens when we move to the 4th plane. Then there is anumana, which is inference. Like where there is smoke, you know there is fire. No? And the last is agami, which is tradition. So here he is emphasizing that tradition. So he's giving a comfort factor to Arjuna that I'm not just pulling a rabbit out of my hat right now. I am giving you time-tested values that have started from, ages ago. And every generation, every guru has thought it out himself and arrived at the same conclusion. So it's a science. It's not something that is just, I've pulled it out of nowhere. So Arjuna has that comfort factor that this is an established, tried and tested knowledge that I'm getting.
I think with that, we've come towards the end of today's show. Are there some thoughts key takeaways that you would like to leave us with for today?
Yes, you brought out this concept of satsang, which is very important. And we need to give it thought. And how do I create that satsang in my own life? Everyone can do it in different ways, depending on our personality. And to understand the importance of satsang in our life, not just spiritual life. Even if it is manufacturing that you're doing, you need to create an environment of positivity. And then we looked at what happens in the Bhaja Govindam. With satsang comes detachment. Then comes freedom from delusion. Then you become steadfast and become Jivan Mukta. You reach realization while living. Then we saw the first few verses of chapter 4, which are so inspiring in a way, because then you understand the reality of life.
Yeah, and the importance of continuing the study ourselves and then passing that practice on to the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so shall we finish with the closing invocation?
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
All right, we're done with today's show. We hope you enjoyed it. And we hope that you have a great week ahead. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, please do leave them in the comments. And if you've enjoyed the show and are benefiting from it, please do subscribe and share the links with your friends and family, because I think the world needs more of this wisdom and some healing as well. So until next time, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.